Hello, I'm live. I am reading out of Life as Carola. It's a book written by Joan Grant, who was a far memory writer. She used to write books about her own far memories. I've already read a couple of her books. This is probably my favorite. It is about Carola, who is the illegitimate daughter of Lord Griffin, and she and her mother have to leave their home because Orlando's mother doesn't want them anywhere near, and it seems as if Orlando is also going to marry somebody else. So we are now on chapter 3, and it is the third part, I believe, and it is entitled The Shining One. Since I was very little, my dream, she's about 6 or 7. Since I was very little, my dreams had been like the memory of yesterday. But even my mother had not believed me when I told her of them. Now that I knew she was so unhappy, I used to pray, not to our Lord or his majestic saints, but to some little archangel, who would not think my prayers too foolish for his compassion. I used to pretend that I could see him standing at the foot of my bed. He had no wings, for I knew that even mortals could fly when their bodies were asleep. His robe was blue as the morning, and his hair luminous as the petals of a celandine. Was bound to his smooth brow by a silver fillet. I told him that my mother sorrowed even while she slept, for tears slid from under her dark lashes, and no smile curved her mouth. I asked him to help me to take her to the house in Perugia, so that she could hear the fountain of which she had dreamt and walk in the early dew when the scent of herbs is strong in the air. For many nights I talked to him, and still my mother slept with sorrow for her companion. Then I saw my archangel stretch out his arms to me, and the palms of his hands were kindliness, and his fingers were strength. I got up from my bed, and I felt his hand on mine, warm and living, as though we were of the same flesh. He pointed to the bed on which I had lain down to sleep, and I saw a child lying there, and it was my reflection. I think this was the first time Carola knew that the body of Carola moved only because my spirit had put on this flesh, just as the leaves of a tree are still until the wind beckons them to dance. He led me to where my mother was sleeping, and I saw that although her body lay there, she did not stand beside it free and radiant as I did, but crouched by the dead ashes of the fire in a grey shroud of grief. My companion called her by name, and at first she would not listen. Then she raised her head, and I saw that her eyes were blind. The Shining One turned to me and said, "For you to sleep is to be born into the light, and to wake is to return into the darkness. On earth you may walk in shadows, for there are clouds over the sun. But you will tell men that above the clouds there is warmth, and beyond the darkness there is light. It may be that some will listen to you and be comforted, but there are many who will hate you and try to afflict you with their own blindness. Long have we known each other, up on earth and away from earth, under many names, and in manifold disguises in the flesh and in the spirit. As Carola, you have a solitary journey, but I shall be with you until the past and the future are one." When I awoke, the sound of his voice was strong in my ears, and I went out into the young morning, for I wished to be alone under the sky with a memory of my vision. I felt far wiser than Carola, with a wider understanding that my child mind could encompass, because I knew that sometimes in my dream I had seen truth, and what other people thought were fancies were the only realities. The mist was lying on the water meadows, shining like clouds under the sun. I stood watching a broken anthill, and I thought that the ants were like little priests in black cassocks, scurrying about their business without knowledge of the immensity of the wide heavens. I realized why I was so unwilling to go to Mass. It was because while I was there, the longing to be spoken to with divine authority was more intense than any other time. Now I should not sorrow that this longing was not fulfilled on earth, for I could escape from the little prison of Carola's body into the presence of the Shining One. Chapter 4. DONELLI. At last Mother began to realize that unless we earned some money, we should starve, so she agreed to stay for a time in the next town that we reached. We had been following a mule train for 2 days and were very tired. When we were in sight of the town walls, the muleteer picketed his animals into a little wood, for if he had taken them through the city gates, he would have had to pay a tax on his merchandise. He left the mules in the care of the boy who helped him look after them, saying to us, as he was not going to drive them across country to rejoin the high road on the far side of town until the following morning, he would carry our trunks as far as the first inn. He shouldered it and strode off down the road, whistling a marching song that I'd heard some of the troops of foreign mercenaries sing as we passed them. The ruts were deep in white dust, and in the strong sunlight the shadows of the plane trees were clear-cut as an inlay of ivory and Macassar ebony. We did not stop at a proper inn, but a little wine shop just inside the town gate. The muleteer was a kind man. He brought us a large bowl of onion broth and as much bread as we could eat, and would not let us pay him anything. I kicked off my shoes under the table, thinking no one would notice, but the innkeeper's wife saw my feet. She made a great fuss of me and called me poor poppet. Then she took me into the kitchen to bathe my raw heels with sour wine and wrap them up with rags dipped in oil. I was very grateful to her, but I said that I couldn't be able to keep the rags on very long, as I couldn't get my shoes over them. She said that I was in no fit state to walk, and that my mother and I must stay with her until I was better. It was not really an inn, but she had an extra room where her 2 sons used to sleep before they went off to the wars, and she said it was kept ready because she was always expecting them back. It was a very nice room. The bed had a goose feather mattress and a white woolen cover, carefully but not skillfully embroidered with flowers and fruit in dark blues and greens. There was a clothes chest and 2 benches and even a few sprigs of willow herb and a crook on the windowsill. She said I looked so tired that I must go to bed, even though it was only 2 hours after midday. I didn't want to, but I thought it would be rude to argue when she had been so kind. I must have fallen asleep almost at once, for it seemed only a few minutes before I woke to see the moonlight shining through the window and Mother asleep beside me. The innkeeper's wife was called DONELLI. We told her that as we had hardly any money left, we couldn't stay with her more than a few days, but she said she wouldn't let us go until we were tired of her company, and she ought to pay us for keeping her son's bed aired, because the amount we ate wouldn't keep a sparrow alive. She got the cobbler to mend my shoes, and he put little pads of soft leather into them so they wouldn't rub my heels. I finish here. The next chapter is the House of Magnolias. Happy Monday, guys.